Entering the 2023 NFL season, I don't think it would have surprised anybody if you told them the San Francisco 49ers would be 11-3 and currently sit atop the NFC. The expectation for them entering the year was Super Bowl or bust, and in the regular season at least, they have lived up to the lofty expectations they had just a little over 3 months ago. But not every team is the San Francisco 49ers, and not every team has lived up to the expectations they had entering the year. Some have, yes, but others have severely disappointed, and in today's video, we are going to discuss 4 of the biggest surprises from the 2023 NFL season. Some of these surprises will be pleasant ones, and we will discuss the long-term ramifications of their 2023 season, while others are unpleasant surprises, and we too will discuss the long-term effect of their 2023 season. And a little spoiler, one of these surprises will not only be a good surprise for the team we discuss, but have a bit of an after effect for another team too. And there is a lot to dive into in today's video. Now let's begin. And the first surprise we are going to discuss in today's video is the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland has went through it all this year, and they very easily could have thrown the towel in not just once or twice, but really several times. And they're down to their 4th quarterback and a 38-year-old Joe Flacco, and sure, Joe has had moments where he looks bad and looks like a 38-year-old past his prime, but there's other times where Joe really turns the clock back and looks good, and at the time of this video release, he is on a 2-game, 300+ yard, 2+ passing touchdown streak. And the Browns' final 3 games are against Houston, the Jets, and the Bengals, and given they are 9-5 and have at least a game on every other AFC wildcard team, I would be surprised if they miss the playoffs. They can miss the playoffs, of course, and I know Browns fans don't want to hear the next part, but even in the scenario they do, I still think this has been a successful year for them when you factor everything in. A healthy Browns team looks monumentally different than what they are currently fielding week in and week out. And even during the Bears game in Week 15, they were down to their 4th quarterback, their 2nd running back, and at least a 2nd-string offensive lineman, minus right guard, as Wyatt Teller was the only opening day starter still on the field. And specifically at right tackle, Jack Conklin went down for the year, and promising rookie DeJuan Jones, who we even highlighted in a video earlier this year as a draft steal, also went down for the remainder of the year. And since their Week 5 bye, they have went 7-3 with a win over the 49ers at home and the Ravens on the road. Given all of the change they've had throughout the year, especially at quarterback, it should not come as a surprise that this team turns the ball over a lot, simply because the quarterbacks are not as in sync with their teammates as a healthy Deshaun Watson would be, because at this point in the year, Watson would have 5 or 6 months of chemistry working with his teammates, where a guy like Joe Flacco has about 3 or 4 weeks to build the said chemistry and hope everything works on the fly at the NFL level. So for Cleveland to even make the playoffs is a huge accomplishment in itself, and in July and August, teams hope they don't get hit by the injury bug. And unfortunately for Cleveland, the injury bug wasn't a little mosquito for them this year. It was really a whole-ass animal. And this was a pivotal year for Kevin Stefanski, who won 11 games in his first season coaching back in 2020, then would go on to have back-to-back seasons with a losing record in 2021 and 2022, and he entered the year not necessarily on the hot seat, but his seat was definitely getting a little warm. And for countless players, including their best offensive skill position player in Nick Chubb, get hurt early in the year, and to still be in a position to make the playoffs is a phenomenal job by Stefanski. Now, I would be lying if I said I think this team can go to the Super Bowl this year, but I do think this team can win a playoff game under the guidance of Joe Flacco. Flacco all-time is 10-5 in the postseason, and most definitely turns it up a notch when January rolls around. And for this team to be counted out the way they were, understandably so by the way, I think it's pretty indisputable that the Cleveland Browns are one of the biggest surprises of the 2023 NFL season. Next up is a surprise on the opposite end of the spectrum, and it's the Carolina Panthers. It's never good to have stats read about your team, especially when they're bad, but the Panthers have been a catastrophic failure, and here's a couple numbers to show how bad they've been. They have 3 20-plus point games in all of 2023, and they all were in Week 6 or before. Their bye week was in Week 7, and since their Week 7 bye, they have averaged just 11.7 points per game and have 4 games out of 8 during this stretch with 10 10 scored or less. And I think what's most frustrating about this lost season for the Panthers is the disappointing play of number 1 overall pick Bryce Young, but there's a lot more problems with this organization than just Bryce not playing well and the offensive line not playing well for the majority of the season either. And the big problem we are of course talking about here is owner David Tepper. And at the beginning of the video, we mentioned how we would discuss the long-term ramifications of the 2023 season for these teams, and the long-term effects for the Panthers is pretty simple. I don't know how or if you can succeed with him as an owner. We don't discuss owners a lot on the channel unless they are egregious or way out of the norm, and given we are discussing David, you can guess that he is both egregious and out of the norm. And my worry with the Panthers in the long term, especially now that Frank Reich is out as head coach, is who is realistically going to want to go to Carolina and coach this team, knowing this guy is going to be breathing down your neck and basically question everything you do. And the short answer is no great tier A head coach this offseason. So the Panthers being as disappointing as they were in 2023 was a big surprise to me, because I thought they could at least be competent. And the fact this video is being released a few days before Christmas and it's been over 2 months since this team has put up not even 30 or 35, but 20 points in a game is very surprising to me. And we will of course discuss this more in depth this offseason, and I do have a podcast in the works that will be launched shortly after the new year, so be on the lookout for that. But when you don't have a first round pick next year on top of an already bad situation, unless Bryce Young looked like CJ Stroud for the majority of his rookie year, which he didn't due to a multitude of factors, your future is very dim, and that's unfortunate because it didn't have to be this way. And not only was the play of the Panthers surprising this year, but pretty much every skill position player on this team outside of Chuba Hubbard and Adam Thielen flopped in a big way. There is a chance Chuba and Thielen each get to 1,000 yards, but after them, it's brutal. I praised the Miles Sanders signing because I thought he could rush for 900 yards or 1,000 yards and 8 or 9 touchdowns and help take some of the load off of whichever rookie quarterback Carolina drafted, but he was a huge free agent bust. Carolina is 24th in rushing yards per attempt, and they are 31st in passing yards in the year, and not surprisingly, since they haven't put up 20 points in a game in over 2 months, they are 29th in points per game. I thought this team could win 5 to 6 games this year and finish in the 20 to 22 range in points per game, but to be this overwhelmingly bad at pretty much every position really surprised me with how I thought the Carolina Panthers would play in 2023. Now, from one team that picked in the top 2 picks of the 2023 draft to the other, and we are heading down to Houston for the next team to discuss the Texans. The Texans had a lot of holes to fill entering the 2023 season, and everyone thought this was going to be a big rebuilding year, and understandably so. And it started out looking like that way too, as they started out 0-2 with 2 double-digit losses to the Ravens and Colts, and especially the Colts game as they were down 31-10 entering the 4th quarter, and ended up losing that game 31-20. But they have won 8-4 since then, and at the time of this video release, they are on the outside of the playoffs looking in. And whether the Texans make the playoffs this year or not, to me is irrelevant because of everything they have accomplished in 2023. And not only what they've accomplished in 2023, but what's important to remember is talent-wise, this roster is probably going to end up being one of the worst the Texans will have during the CJ Stroud era. CJ's top 3 receivers were Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Noah Brown during his rookie year, and there will be a point in time, and whether it's as early as this offseason we don't know yet, but there will be a point in time where the Texans can sign receivers at a slight discount because guys will want to play with CJ. And what is impressive about the Texans' 2023 season and the success they've had is they've accomplished all of this with virtually no run game. They've had a few games where the run game gets going, but Dameon Pierce was a player I had high expectations for entering the 2023 season, and I guess you could say he could make today's video individually for surprising in a bad way, but the Texans are 28th in yards per carry as a team. They have failed to run for 100 yards as a team in 8 of the 14 games they've played, and they are also 22nd in rushing yards as a team. Having the success they've had with a rookie quarterback while not being able to help him out as much as you would like in the run game only adds to just how big of a surprise the 2023 Texans are. Yes, they got their asses kicked against the Jets in Week 14, but not all 6 of their losses were like that, or even close to that. And in fact, 2 of their losses were to the Falcons and Panthers by a combined 4 points. And the fact you can reasonably talk yourself into saying the Texans are 2 miscues away from being a 10-4 team through 14 games, knowing the expectations they had entering this year, is insane. Will Anderson has also played his ass off as a pass rusher and is leading all rookies in pressures and is third in pressures between first and second year players, only behind Aiden Hutchinson and George Karlaftis. Will has 51 pressures on the year, and as long as he has just 3 pressures in the next 3 games, he will surpass Hutchinson's 53 pressures he had as a rookie, all with a higher pass rush win rate. People expected Stroud and Anderson to become good players as they were drafted that high for a reason, but I had my eyebrows raised when they willingly traded their 2024 first-round pick to the Cardinals to go get Anderson, thinking that pick could be in the top 5. Needless to say, that pick will be far from the top 5 in the 2024 draft. Houston had 11 total wins between the 2020 and 2022 seasons, and there's a possibility they get 11 in 2023 alone, and I never would have thought that was possible a few months ago. And in a pleasant way, the Texans are one of the biggest surprises from the 2023 NFL season. Next up is a surprise for 2 teams, and we'll call this the Shane Steichen effect. When looking at the Eagles and Colts on paper, I don't think anybody would deny that the Eagles are a much better team offensively speaking, but you may be surprised to find out that they're only separated by 1 spot in points per game, with Philly ranking 7th and Indy ranking 8th. And we're focusing more on the Indy part of this, but what Shane Steichen has done in his first year as the head coach of the Colts is incredible. This team has played with a backup quarterback and running back for most of the 2023 season and has exceeded expectations beyond anybody's wildest dreams. And it's not like this team hasn't faced adversity either. They were 3-2 after a win over the Titans back in Week 5, then dropped 3 straight to fall to 3-5, and have won 5 of their last 6 games since. And their final 3 games are all winnable games, as they are against the Falcons, Raiders, and Texans. And if you would have told me there's a chance the Colts win 11 games in 2023 3 months ago, I wouldn't have believed it. And I tweeted this earlier this month, but I really love the future of the Indianapolis Colts. Guys, I really like Anthony Richardson, and I think he's going to be the franchise quarterback for this team for a long time. And like you said with the Texans, if this team gets to the postseason, I don't really care what they do in the postseason, because in the vaunted AFC, it's surprising they could even be there to begin with. Now, of course, we don't want to see them get blown out 42-3 or anything like that, but you get the point. Left tackle Bernhard Raimann has played well all year, and the Colts look like they have their future franchise tackle from a 3rd-round pick in the 2022 draft. Indy is a dark horse team to seriously compete in 2024, and it's due in large part to Steichen and how he has maximized this offense. Guys, if we get a healthy AR and Jonathan Taylor, nobody is going to line up saying they want to play this team. Now, on the other side of this, Philly has the talent to win a Super Bowl, but quietly this team has not had a 400-yard game since Week 5 against the Rams. They are going through a very bad skid right now, and the only good news, or view through a glass half full lens for Philly right now, is their final 3 games are against the Giants twice and the Cardinals, so there is a chance they can right the ship before the playoffs start. Eagles fans have been vocal about their displeasure with current offensive coordinator Brian Johnson, and there's no doubt they would do anything to bring back Shane Steichen, knowing how well this team played throughout the 2022 season. Steichen should without a doubt be heavily involved in the Coach of the Year conversation. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you did, please like and subscribe, as only about 32% of people watching are subscribed, and it helps the growth of the channel tremendously. Until next time, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.